for kids who need it. Yeah, no kid wants to be told to go to summer school, but I think we can use the summer as an opportunity to bring some of these kids up. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Mansell.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with Patty that I don't like to talk about children have lost opportunities for instruction, but they've also gained a lot of things. They've gained resilience. Many of them have gained skills that they wouldn't have gained had the pandemic not occurred. Technological skills. My kids now know how to unload the dishwasher, which they didn't do before the pandemic. So I think it's really important that as educators, we look at children from a strengths mode, so that when they come into the classroom in September, we're not saying, what do we need to fix? We're saying, what are the strengths that you're coming in with? And then I want to trust teachers. I want to trust teachers to get to know their students, and let's give them a little more space to be creative with their curricula, to envision activities, projects, group work, where children can really grow without being constantly measured. I think we kind of need to relax a little bit, let the kids come in, let the teachers do their work. And I think if we are proactive and I agree with the summer program, that's going to be wonderful. I think if we're proactive and we acknowledge the strengths of our children, they'll be successful.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, and that will start with you, Ms. Mansell. What do you think is the district's role in tackling issues related to student mental health and codependency, that is, drug and alcohol abuse?
I've given this a lot of thought, and I care very deeply about children's mental health. I think the district should take a stronger role in promoting programs that address children's social and emotional needs. I have several ideas because I do work in schools, and one idea I have is for an advisory. And an advisory group is usually in the middle or high school, because elementary school students have one dedicated teacher. But in an advisory group, a small group of children will have one adult who follows them either through the year or through the course of their schooling. And they can create environments where children can speak freely, they get to know one another, they can raise concerns, and they can have that trusted adult who they can go to at any point for advice and support. So I think there are a range of things we can implement in our school that actually don't cost any money. We already have the staff for them if we're creative about it. In terms of drug and alcohol, I know we have programs already. We have the DARE program, we have health programs that address this, and also a Pride survey.
Thank you. Mr. Lozito.
I agree with Rebecca's last comment, which kind of dovetails nicely to this one regarding it starts in the classroom. I do believe that the district should take a proactive approach to these topics, but there's really no better place to identify where there's an issue than in the classroom. And that requires ongoing engagement with parents. That includes ongoing observation. That includes the construct by which those problems can be identified early and snuffed out. But one thing that we have not talked about regarding mental health are the teachers. You know, both my parents were teachers, and they're long retired, but I speak to them often about how would you handle COVID in the classroom. And they're very stark conversations, and I applaud our teachers, and I don't believe that this district has done enough to address the teachers' mental health crisis right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Michalski.
Hi. I can start with saying that embedded right now in Rye Neck, in our curriculum, we do have the foundation work for dealing with these issues. In 6th grade, we do start with the DARE program. 7th and 8th grade, health covers personal health and safety. 10th grade, it continues in more deeper depth because of the older age of the students. There is a SAD, which stands for Students Against Destructive Decisions, and the Pride survey, which covers sex, drug, and alcohol use. This is an anonymous survey which helps our guidance counselors get a reading of the current student population and help shape the level of conversation the children need. this is a partnership with the parents at home for sure. And the reality is there can never be too much conversation and instruction to help our children make better choices for their physical and mental health. Next year, I would continue this conversation with key personnel to ensure our children have the tools they need to make healthy decisions for themselves.
Thank you. And Ms. Harvey.
I think that mental health is the biggest consideration for students, for people in general. Mental health is number one. I think the district should absolutely be involved. We already are, and we should be even more so. I think guidance counselors should be involved in keeping an eye on kids, how they're doing, how things, seem to be going. The school psychologists, which I know, are already involved, and I think should continue that and take a bigger role, because when it comes down to it, you can be getting all A's, but if you are very unhappy, that leads to very bad things. And I truly, truly feel that mental health is of number one utmost importance for everyone.
Thank you. And the next question begins with you. Do you believe that the administration needs to do more to increase outreach to the community in its decision-making process? And if so, what should they do?
I absolutely think that the administration should be doing more outreach. I think parents who have kids in the school district, we get a lot of emails. So we do know a lot about what's going on in what is the information that's given to us. I think community members who don't have kids in the district know very, very little about what's going on. I know that because I talk to my neighbors all the time about it. And I think more outreach is very important. I mean, they are taxpayers just like we are. I think there are several ways that we can do this through mailings. We can do, meet your administration, little coffees or something. Meet your board members. I think more outreach is definitely needed. I think we have all heard that a lot, particularly over the past year. And I do think that the administration can do more.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ms. Mansell.
Thanks. I feel outreach is synonymous with communication. And I think right now we need to focus on streamlining our communication so that parents get information easily without having to search around for it. I'm on Facebook a lot. I see a lot of questions on Rye Neck parents where people don't know if we have school on a particular day. They find the calendar difficult to read. So I think, first of all, the board should have a presence on Facebook. It doesn't have to be a place where people can comment and carry on, but I think it should be easy for people to access information. I think we also need to find a way to make explicit what happens to questions that are asked at board meetings. I hear a lot of people talking about it. I know the board has procedures because they have to discuss questions that are asked and maybe can't formulate an answer, right then. But I think the board needs to be really explicit with community members about what happens when you ask a question, how should you expect to receive a response, and the whole community needs to know because often people have the same questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lozito.
Sure. I think the question at hand here is a one of trust, trust and transparency. There are a number of different approaches there, but specifically for me, and I've put this out on my website, that I would advocate for forums, community forums. So on COVID, we have many physicians in this community many of whom are experts in this. I would love to hear what they have to say and have an open dialogue. Plans, when we make plans as a district, what is the plan? Very often it seems like the plan comes out the day before the plan is being executed, and we need to improve that capability. And finally, and I agree with Rebecca here, we need to be much more focused on our outreach. there seems to be this, that numbers of communications equals effectiveness, and that's not always the case. We have to work smarter, not harder.
Thank you. And Ms. Nashowski?
Yes, I think clearly we can see that through the themes tonight, the communication with the district is an area that we need to focus on for next year. Unfortunately, sometimes I think even the board doesn't do a great job of truly explaining how much went into our decision making, and that we are sometimes hesitant or unable to share everything that went into getting us to the final decision for various reasons, why we're not allowed to be completely transparent when you're sitting on the board. But I think Dr. Latinsky, again, he set up 6 opportunities for people to come in and meet with him to have candid, organic conversations of things not only that they liked in Rye Neck, but things that they really wanted to see change. And I think only through that open dialogue with the administration and the board that together we can move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next question can't just be a yes or no question. Do you support the proposed budget? Yes or no, and please explain why. And that begins with Ms. Nashowski.
Yes, I love this question because I can definitely say I do support this budget. And I'm also really proud that for all 6 years that I was on the board, that I proposed and supported a budget that was under the tax levy cap. This year's budget not only preserves services, it adds back what was cut last year, and it allows your estimated tax rate to go down, whether you live in Mamaroneck or Rye. And with our one-time federal funding, that we will be able to give our students the additional support that they need for a successful start of the next school year. If reelected, I will continue to be fiscally responsible while providing our children all they need to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Harvey.
I do support the budget. I actually went through the entire budget line by line because I was sort of interested in seeing everything that is itemized. I definitely do have some questions about it, which this is obviously not the forum for. But overall, I would say that it is robust. The areas where there are increases for teacher salaries and things like that, I'm 100% in favor of. I would never cut teacher salaries. I think they should always be increasing. So yeah, I do support the budget. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Mantel.
Yes, like the other candidates, I support the budget. We have a $45 million budget. It's tax cap compliant. But I also want to point out that as a non-board member, I only have so much access to the budget and the thought that went into each line item. As a teacher who is constantly restrained by budgets, I understand that every single thing on the budget is a value decision. Why do we have 6.2 teaching lines for next year in our budget? Who wanted the teacher? Did a special ed, did someone at Bellows want special ed and someone at Daniel Warren want a reading specialist? I know there is a lot of debate behind each debate and negotiation behind each item. And so I fully support the budget, but I also support going forward, there being more transparency and more communication with the community so that the community can contribute their ideas, their values, their priorities in terms of allocating funds in the next budget.
Thank you. And Mr. Lozito.
So I'll couch my answer and never ask a finance guy whether he agrees with the budget. So I in principle agree with the budget, but I think the question is actually a longer term question. The budget right now as it sits is founded on a significant increase in state aid, which is trickling down from the federal government to the tune of $1 million increase or 50% increase year on year. That, as a finance person, is significant and concerning. There are also some other things that I think we should think of over the long term. We've levered ourselves to the tune of almost $300,000 to $400,000 a year in debt service, which wasn't there before for the STEM lab. What's the plan for the STEM lab? I'd like to see it. And also transportation, utilities increasing 10%. The most concerning thing I have about the budget, and this is a long-term question, is if you look at the reserve statement of the board of the district, through 2026, it decreases 65% to $3 million.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to the next question, which starts with Mr. Lozito. What are your specific recommendations to improve the district's financial position?
Was that planned to ask me that question? It worked out though.
I'm only reading what
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. Look, it's I don't, as a finance guy, I don't like to Monday morning quarterback what's happening in the business, in the operation. I can only kind of probe and ask questions. And I think I just hit on them, which is if I look at the reserve position of the district over the next 10 years, it's significantly negative. If I look at the tax cap position, the way we get there below the tax cap is basically bureaucratic math in my mind. The debt service is actually excluded from the calculation. So the truth of the matter is this district will face increased costs over the next number of years. And we should look to, I would say, some of our adjacent states that look at cost-saving initiatives across districts, as well as really going through the budget again over a long-term basis and trying to plan ahead for it.
Thank you. Ms. Michalski.
Hi, yeah. So first I'd like to say I feel our district is in a really good financial position. We have always been fiscally responsible in our budgets and in our financing. I think, in our budget presentation, it was indicated that our Moody rating is fantastic, which means we get the lowest interest rates for the building of our new construction project that we have out there. Our reserve plan is, it's a plan that we have going forward that gets reviewed every year based on what current financial indicators are and how much money has to go into our pensions and our reserve funds for TRS and ERS. It's all very fluid. So although the budget is our projection, as with any, individual home, you have to deal with what is coming in the actual year as to what the final number is going to be. I think COVID showed that with hidden expenses that we did not know we were going to have to do. But again, I would say, I believe Rye Neck is in a very solid financial position.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Harvey.
So like I said, I did go through the budget and tried to sort of understand how each number was come to line by line. We do seem to be in pretty good financial health. With the construction project going on, that of course was a large amount of money that we had to borrow. To get that work done, I'm glad that we're doing that work. I think that we're going to see a lot of benefits from it. But at the same time, I think we need to be very, very careful with our spending over the next few years, given that we did just, take out that huge amount of money. So I think we need to be particularly, perhaps even more so than before, very, very cognizant of our spending over the next number of years to make sure that we're keeping things under control.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ms. Mansell.
Yes, I agree. We need to be careful with spending and financially prudent with all of our decisions going forward. I also feel like we have a great team at the administrative level in Rye Neck who do a terrific job creating a budget that sustains our district. On the school level, I feel like there are some more creative ways that we can allocate funds and get more bang for our buck, so to speak. I think I've heard Dr. Lutinsky talk about teacher training, particularly in the fields of mathematics and science. And I think we have some really great educators in our district already who could probably provide a lot of that training for their peers, for their colleagues. So I come at this question really with the lens of an educator who knows how to make good use of limited resources and think creatively about staffing needs and the needs of our children.
Thank you. Mr. Lozito, you indicated you'd like a rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Yep. I love what Rebecca just said. I think that's a perfect complement to my statement, which will be, we may be in a good position, but we've increased our mortgage and we're paying it off on a credit card. That's basically, as a finance person, that's what we've done. We've taken out a significant amount of debt, and then we're taking money from the state at an increasing rate. At some point, those dollars from the state will dry up and they will come back to the taxpayer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
okay, we're ready to go to the last question. I could take this opportunity to thank the audience for supplying some very good questions for tonight. And if there's somebody out there who submitted one that wasn't heard, please understand that the league members narrowed this down to a group of 10 questions, which they gave me. So here's the last question, and it will begin with Ms. Mansell. And that is there anything Rye Neck needs to do to address issues regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools?
Yes, the short answer is yes. There's a lot that we need to do. In terms of equity and inclusion, we need to start with early intervention, with ramping up our efforts to intervene in with students who are struggling from kindergarten through grade 3 when they're learning to read, because by the time they get to 3rd grade, they're reading to learn, and sometimes it's almost more difficult to help children recover from that. In terms of equity, we are participating in the CRSE, the Culturally Responsive Sustaining Educational Framework that was adopted by New York State, which creates spaces for children to learn to listen to other people's perspectives, to be able to think for themselves because they're considering a range of ideas, and they are learning to be respectful, empathetic, and kind to one another. So I think using that framework as a jumping off point for our children will help us to achieve our goals of inclusivity.
Thank you. Mr. Lozito.
sure. I think of my mom, who was a kindergarten teacher for 40 years. She always used to say, those people who have clenched fists can't shake hands. And I think the environment outside of our district is one of dangerous and damaging political invective that's going on right now. And the board should really focus itself on being an oasis away from this and really focusing on our connectivity, our commonalities, our complementary natures, rather than differences. I truly believe that there's more power in togetherness than there is in division. And that may sound naive, but I believe that from the bottom of my heart. And I think the district should enable that in any way, shape, or form that it can.
Thank you. Ms. Michalski.
Yes, thank you. So this issue has seemingly moved to the forefront throughout our country. And although it has been a focus of the board for my entire tenure as a trustee, diversity, equity, and inclusion has been the leading practice and one of the bedrocks of the Rye Neck culture. Our district is diverse, ethnically, socioeconomically, and ideologically. Rye Neck has always worked to ensure the equitable education for every child that passes through our doors. This is not a new concept or path that Rye Neck is going down. Inclusion of all children in our programs is something we strive for every day in Rye Neck and something we hope to do better tomorrow. I will continue those efforts if reelected. And while we all might not agree on certain topics or how to get it done, the discussion, the conversations, the partnership, that is what's going to bring us together and come to a solution for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Harvey.
I think Rye Neck does a pretty good job with diversity, equity, and inclusion. but with any other entity, there's always room for improvement. In terms of diversity, I think we do a good job celebrating diversity in the schools. I think it's woven into the curriculum. I know that my kids have come home, and some of the things that they've said that they've talked about, whether it's surrounding a holiday or talking about a specific figure, a specific person, or different cultures in their class. I think we've done a pretty good job, and I think that the push continues to keep that. Equity and inclusion, I think perhaps are areas that we can address a little bit more. I think probably one of the biggest differences in our school district is a socioeconomic one. We definitely have some families who are up here and some who are down here. And I think closing the gap a little bit would be great.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, then we'll move to closing statements. As we said at the outset, they are allowed 1.5 minutes in reverse order from the openings, which means we begin with Mr. Lozito.
I thank you all for the discussion and consideration this evening. I recognize I'm a new candidate for this community. Some have told me I'm wasting my time. I haven't lived here long enough and I'm at a disadvantage. Maybe that's all true, but I hope my involvement speaks to my tenacity. Surely our district will be well served by broadening its expertise, leadership, and communications. A new trustee should augment and complement the board. In many cases, this type of diversity is the foundation of a board's governance. But this election is deeper than that. Our decision is not simply one between candidates, but between familiarity and vision, the past and what is to come. In times of turbulence, we can fool ourselves into believing that the familiar will ensure success when comfort is in fact the riskiest road. Right now, our considerations are great, but the opportunities are greater. Yogi Berra once said, if you don't know where you're going, you may end up someplace else. Luckily, that someplace is not predetermined. Unfortunately, it is also not guaranteed. I look forward to your support and to serving our community. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Mansell.
Thank you for this evening. It was much more pleasant than I thought it was going to be. And I think the Rye Neck voters should be really happy that you have 4 people wanting to volunteer their time. And we seem to agree on much more than we disagree on. So that was great. In these unprecedented times, we need a board that will work collaboratively with the community to make decisions. Open communication will allow stakeholders to understand the good work that is already taking place and provide opportunities for community members to make a positive impact on the district. If elected, I promise to improve communication in Rye Neck by making information easy to access, by listening to your concerns and ideas, and by providing clear, concrete responses whenever possible. I will take the time to go through our school budget line by line and think of ways for us to maximize our resources and include community priorities in allocating funds. Our new board should articulate a clear vision for our schools, a vision that prioritizes student engagement and achievement so that all our children can graduate high school with a love of learning and the skills they need to be successful in an ever-changing economy. I am excited at the prospect of serving the Rye Neck community on the board. If elected, I know I can help Rye Neck maintain the traditions we love and also raise our standards to achieve our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey.
Thank you all again for attending tonight, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I hope I have convinced you that I'm the right candidate for our Board of Education. I feel that I'm very well qualified due to my career, my involvement in our schools and our community, and my interest in representing a broad range of opinions and backgrounds. As a board member, I will work to increase transparency and open communication. I will foster unity, and I will work to continuously improve our great school district. I will address the COVID learning gap that has been created with some students having been on at-home learning for so long. I will address the social emotional effect that COVID and at-home learning has had on students. I look forward to being involved in producing the district's operating budget. I want to look closely for ways to save money for all of us as taxpayers. I want to find innovative ways to continue providing a top-notch education to our students while keeping budget numbers under control. So I ask for your vote on May 18th. And if you're not able to get to the polls, don't forget to apply for an absentee ballot through the district website. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you. And before Ms. Michalski, you don't quite get the last word because I got a couple of words.
I'll take what I can get.
After we're finished. No, your turn. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you to all of you who took the time to virtually attend this evening. We've been able to discuss many issues, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be heard alongside my fellow candidates. The most important thing that board service requires is a willingness to serve. It requires making decisions every day. Some of the decisions are straightforward and easy. Other times, the decisions are very difficult. The only focus when making these decisions should be on what's right for the children. Board decisions are not based on the most popular outcome or a separate agenda, and rarely do they make everyone happy. Nevertheless, it is the work of the board trustees to make these difficult decisions and to keep our school community safe, moving in the right direction, and be forward thinking. I can honestly say that all the decisions that I've made in the last 6 years as a board trustee have only focused on what is best for the children of Rye Neck. It is always in the forefront of my service, and I can promise you that if reelected, I will continue to be an advocate for all of the children in the district and work in partnership with the parents. Tonight, I'm asking for your support of my reelection to the Board of Education. Please come out and vote on Tuesday, May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to thank all of the candidates for their participation today and congratulate them not only for their performance this evening, but also for their commitment to serving their community. The forum will be available on the local cable station and on-demand viewing on the Rye-Rybrook and Portchester League website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. And I want to thank Doug French and other members of the local league that put this event together. I might remind all of you of the unique and important role played by the League of Women Voters here and in communities all across the country. The League's work in registering voters, educating voters on the issues of the day, protecting the right to vote is vital to the strength of our democracy. Your local league is made up of volunteers who devote their time and energy. Your participation and assistance would be welcomed, and your financial contributions would be appreciated. The League's motto is, remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. I encourage all registered voters to get out and vote on May 18th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you and good night.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good night.